Coming up, a former Beach Boy musician opens up about how stress nearly took his life. That's coming up on The Whitney Reynolds Show.
The Whitney Reynolds Show is supported by the Illinois chapter of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, whose mission is to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide. Children's Learning Place, excellence in early childhood education since 1998. And the Autobarn Mazda of Evanston and Chicago. The Autobarn Mazda, where driving matters. Special thanks to Kevin Kelly with Jameson Sotheby's International Realty, Art of Modern Dentistry, Deluxe Cleaning Services, Josh Moulton Fine Art, Evolve Her, Chicago Andrea Creative, and Mazda.
Coming up, people will do anything to try to add years to their lives, but the answer may be easier than you think. That's next on The Whitney Reynolds Show. You're watching The Whitney Reynolds Show. Today we're looking at the ways in which lowering stress improves heart health and may even add years to your life. We'll be sitting down with the chief of cardiology who knows the best ways to improve your health and life are often the simplest. Welcome to the show, Dr. Yancey.
Thanks, Whitney. I'm delighted to be here.
So we're talking about stress and the effects it can have on the heart. What have you found out, like with medical knowledge, on how this affects the heart?
You know, we know that stress is this force that impacts each of us differently, and it's never the same for each person. But we understand that when stress is apparent in one's life, it does have health consequences, many times with regards to heart disease.
So you're saying that stress impacts everybody differently?
Exactly. And what's important about this is that people manage stress differently. Not having those coping skills allows stress to become much more apparent and have much more consequence. We're so focused right now, particularly on blood pressure management. And so many times people that either already have high blood pressure or a tendency to become high blood pressure will eclipse that threshold because of stress. And so when we deal with people and we're trying to talk about lifestyle so that high blood pressure won't be problematic for you, we really have conversations about if there's something in your life that's a little bit awkward, a little bit difficult, think about refocusing your attention, recalibrating, because that's where stress becomes very evident.
That's interesting. So what you're essentially saying is stress impacts us all differently, but it's when we hit that threshold that it could impact our heart?
So to frame it differently, if you are already at risk for heart disease and you're trying your best to do other things, stress may be that other dynamic that tips you over and gets you to where the heart disease is much more apparent. One of the really great things about this conversation is that more and more we're understanding that the treatment of heart disease, and more importantly, the prevention of heart disease, doesn't involve medications. It really is about lifestyle. And when you think about it, stress is just one component. But if you can think about what constitutes a healthy lifestyle, stress management included, now we're talking. Now we can talk about reducing the likelihood of having disease, and if you have disease, dealing with it much better.
Well, I like what you say about lifestyle because that's something we can all manage, right?
Of course, and it's a great, great theme to help you deal with your own stress points. And when you know that you're under stress and you feel that tension, you feel that tightness, then you can use these lifestyle techniques to kind of assuage that, dissipate it, make it less.
And when you say feel that tension, I'm wondering, like, do you actually mean like feel the tension in your heart, or are you just like you're upset?
I have to tell you, many times in the office when I meet a patient, particularly for the first time, sometimes I have to stop and say, exhale. And once that moment happens, they realize how tense they were, how upset they were. And you know what? Everything else gets better. The blood pressure gets better. The heart rate slows down. And the ability to translate information and communicate becomes much better.
For our viewers that might not understand heart disease, can you explain what that means?
So all of us, because of our diets, our lifestyle, are at risk for what continues to be an important burden on our health, which is the likelihood of developing heart disease or stroke, which still is the number one risk that we all bear. But the important thing is that 80% of that, whether it's heart attacks or heart failure or irregular heart rhythms, 80% of that, 80% is preventable. And so once you realize that none of us are immune, it's about us, not them, not you, then you start thinking, okay, what can I do to live a better, longer, happier life so I don't have to navigate this heart disease conundrum prematurely?
What do you recommend for people to do?
I think it's a very simple strategy. We've actually articulated it as something we call Life's Simple Seven. Now, what could that possibly mean? It sounds pretty
fabulous.
catchy, right?
Yeah, I like it.
But it's very real because it's based on research. It's scientifically proven to be beneficial. So this is not just a cause du jour. This is truth. Don't smoke. Have a weight appropriate for your height. Have a healthy diet. We can talk about what that means. Be physically active. I didn't say exercise. I didn't say spandex. I didn't say gyms. Be physically active. Walking qualifies. And then know your numbers. I bet you know your cell number without any hesitancy.
I got it down.
But I won't test you on this. Do you know your cholesterol value? Do you know your blood sugar? Do you know your blood pressure? All of us should have that knowledge available, just like we know our cell number, because much of that represents an action point where something positive can happen. If you take those 7 things that I just described and trend all of those towards the real norm, health and the benefits of health is the next realization.
Can you get to know those numbers outside of the hospital? Can you realistically find out what all those things are in your home?
It's absolutely not only plausible, but possible to do those things. But the better message is this. You have the will, you have the power to volitionally act upon all of this. If you want to really reduce it to simple terms, it's do more physically, eat less, and know those numbers. Virtually every adult, almost regardless of your circumstances, has at least one touch point with a healthcare provider, a physician, a nurse, etc. These are such simple parameters to have tested to know. And once you combine that with the things that you can drive, the things you can do, it really is not a dream that's out on the horizon. It's attainable. It's in your hands to control your health by just doing these simple things. And that, back to our theme, is a brilliant way to deal with stress.
Have you seen over the years a heart that maybe was really unhealthy become healthy?
Absolutely. And almost invariably, you know what happens? It's the blend of education, awareness, understanding what the circumstances are, changing the lifestyle, and whatever the medical interventions are. But I've seen many people who were desperately ill, and once the weight loss kicked in, the diet change, the tobacco and alcohol went away, they were aware of the things to be concerned about and the things to use as a goal. I've seen many people get healthier and healthier and healthier. You can't undo heart disease.
Okay.
Because disease is, and I don't like the word disease. I really think the right way to think about it is that it is a condition, but it's a manageable condition. I think when we start using words about disease, those are fait complete. That is something that's already set in stone. But so much more plasticity exists in the human system than we account. And if we can think about a condition that we can manage, that changes the frame completely.
I like that. And I just want to remind our viewers that you did say that the stress, if we have something with our heart already going on, that just would pile it on and would not be good for it.
That's exactly right. Stress can tip you over. We know that things like passing out, things like having heart attacks occur sometimes, things like death happen when people are exposed to too much stress. And so it is appropriate to think about what are your stress triggers, how do you stress manage? But the really good news is that one brilliant way to deal with stress is to take that negative moment and then balance it with a positive moment. And that positive moment comes from this healthy living. And don't overlook the importance of social networks and family and positive interactions. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say get enough rest.
Get enough rest. Oh, I love it. So many great things from this segment. Hopefully our viewers are listening and just taking down notes like crazy because this could add years to their lives. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
It's now time for our viewer's voice. Let's see what you had to say on how stress has impacted your life.
So how I handle stress. As a mental health professional, I've studied a lot of techniques to handle stress. So first I start with deep breathing. I often have other exercises that usually help me cope, which often relate to playing music. I love music, it's very therapeutic, whether it be listening to it or playing it myself. I also have photography that keeps me motivated and keeps me focused, but I try to do things that allow me to keep my brain active, but allow me to also have some downtime and to rest.
Stress has impacted my life. I have 2 little kids, and if I'm hungry or I'm tired, I yell a lot, and I don't love that. So I try to do meditation and eat a lot, too much. It helps with the stress.
I reduce stress by spending time with family, doing my hobbies like volleyball, my artwork with dried flowers, and just spending time with friends, and trying not to think about work and all the issues in the world, just to get a time out.
Get social with us. Make your voice heard. Submit your video on WhitneyReynolds.com. Robert O. Williams, a former Beach Boy musician, had a close encounter with death and has since made it his mission to help people lower their stress for a healthier heart. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Whitney. It's a wonderful honor to be here.
Well, it is so fantastic to have you on the set today because we're talking about lowering stress and improving our heart health and how those two correlate. And then you had a near-death experience that really shook up your life and kind of got you to really making sure that other people change their habits as well for lowering stress. So tell us about that near-death experience.
Well, I mentioned the Beach Boys. If you could imagine being 25 years old, on top of the world, I had a Bentley. I'm being toured around the world with the Beach Boys and other groups, by the way. And then I started getting sick, and then sicker and sicker and sicker. And I went to doctors, and they didn't know what was going on. So I just went to a place where I trusted that something would happen other than me dying, because I got to the point where I was 110 pounds, 108 pounds, couldn't eat anything, was just bedridden, actually.
Wow.
And so I really let go, and one morning I woke up and I wasn't really in my body. I was in a different place. And so that is what now is called a near-death experience. I was unconscious physically for about 20 minutes. And in that time, I saw things, I saw images, and when I came back, I remember hearing the ocean and hearing the birds and the insects and the sounds of nature. And I was at once realizing that this completely beautiful planet has the potential to be a place without suffering. I saw that potential and I felt it, and I felt the innate intelligence of nature and how all these different parts of nature work together with some mysterious cosmic intelligence.
Do you think you could have been dreaming, or do you really feel like you were out of your body?
I was definitely not dreaming.
Okay,
But,
so
you know,
not like a typical dream.
It wasn't a typical
Okay,
dream.
wow. And you came back from that, and is that when you developed this heart app and saying, okay, a world without suffering, we need to lower our stress?
Exactly. We all know that stress is a very, very difficult thing to live with these days, and we're all confronted with stressful things. And one of the things that I found is that, speaking of nature, there are these fields. I actually saw geometries and equations, algorithms, when I was in this other altered state of consciousness. Now, I was a musician. I didn't really like math.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think I could ever dream that one up. No.
Yeah, and I've heard of like Einstein and others, sometimes they just get a download, they get a whole complete picture of some insight. It was similar to that because I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was important, so I wrote them all down. And then I worked with very, very smart scientists, and they interpreted these algorithms and these equations in ways that we eventually developed a app or a application of energy that is in harmony with nature, that is actually based on the laws of nature themselves.
And that's what your app does.
That's what the app
It
does.
lowers stress by getting in tune with nature.
It's like a walk in the woods or a walk down by the ocean. You know, if we can, in our big city lives or our busy, if we can just at the same time be walking down by the ocean or out in nature, we're going to feel better, right? So we can't really do that these days. We have to take vacations, and that's great, but our lives are active and full. And so the app actually includes these natural rhythms, these natural energies that during the day, and it's on our cell phone, which is just a symptom of today's interactive social advantage that we're living, but with that side effect of stress and bombardment of thoughts and ideas. So we add that app to the cell phone. And so the field around you or around the cell phone, including you, is like nature. It's like a walk down by the ocean.
And that helps lower the stress, and it's good for your heart.
We did an 18-month study, double-blind biophysicist from UC Berkeley found that with the app, compared to placebo, stress went down, heart rate variability went up, which is a sign of lower stress, 30% lower stress just by having this app on.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your story.
Thank you, Whitney. It's a pleasure to be here.
Reducing stress has always been her expertise. However, a few years ago, our next guest had to apply her coaching technique in her own life after delivering and losing a set of twins. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We just heard your story, and it's one that's tough.
Yes, it seems to be difficult every time I go through it, even though I had expected that after all this time it would have been a little bit easier, and I thought I'd be able to go through it without any hiccups. But
was this your first pregnancy?
It was my first pregnancy.
So can you tell us what happened?
I was 20 weeks pregnant. We had done fertility treatments for 5 years and were super excited. And we were blessed to be pregnant with twins. So we were hoping it would kind of be a one and done situation. At about 20 weeks, I woke up in the middle of the night and my water had broken. I didn't fully realize that my water had broken. We went to the delivery room right away as directed. And one of the sacs of one of the babies had broken. And over the course of 6 days, we did a lot of testing to see if there was any potential for the fluid to return, because they need the fluid to develop lungs and all of that at 20 weeks and much further. And it was not. And the inevitable was that there would be an infection that would cause potential damage to my body and my health and the babies. Although we could push it as far as possible, we could only push it so far. And I had to consent to terminate something we had spent 5 years trying to do. And then I had to actually deliver the babies while they were technically alive still. They were hearts beating and all of that. And it wasn't what I had expected. None of it's what you expect, but I never expected to have to actually give live birth to my children. And then we had, luckily, some great support who guided us through when this happens. There's all sorts of great things to know, take photos, and because although it's not, they're not going to be around with you forever, you will want photos of the moments. And so we sat and we had our family and the people who we had chosen to be the godparents. And we spent time with them and we held them.
I just want to grab your hand because I'm sitting here with you, and I want you to know every person that's watching right now is here with you.
Yeah. And it was hard. It was, your physical body holds a lot of that during and after the experience. There's a lot of work that has to go in after the fact, and it affects pregnancies following. But
How did you get through that? That's what, I mean, today's show is all about stress in the heart. How did you keep your level of just like from your own heart breaking so much that you had to move on with life?
I didn't. And that's what I'm trying to help people learn and experience, and through what we do at Balance Healing Center now, is that I was lucky enough to have practitioners, my coworkers and peers, clinical practitioners, also alternative mind-body integrators who helped me with the process. This was not you walk in the door and life had decided for you. This was a life had decided for you, but now you have to sign the paperwork and you have to still take part and make a conscious decision on what's going to happen next.
Wow. I'm just, with your story and being so honest and open with it. I mean, I want our viewers to know that, like, what's crazy about your story is you help people manage stress in their life, and you help people be able to move on and do miraculous things with their body. And yet this is, your body essentially was, I don't want to say failing you, but in the sense like,
right. But that was something that came up. And that's part of the things that you work through, is even fertility alone. Fertility work for me, might not be for everybody, but for me was traumatic. Why can't I do this? This is something everybody should be able to, all these people. We had young children in our family who were actually unintentionally getting pregnant at the time. And it's like, what's going on? You have those self-doubts. You question yourself. You question, the judgments. Where did I go wrong? This, that, and the other thing. And it's funny because up until in the previous years as a massage therapist, stress, whatever. It always seemed like a silly benefit of healing work, of massage and all these other modalities. And oh boy, did I get it. Did I all of a sudden, it really sank in the necessity of the management.
So what do you recommend for our viewers for stress management?
So what got me through and what we do to help people get through unexpected, expected traumas, from grieving and expected loss to unexpected injuries and other things that happen in life, unthinkable things even, that be aware and give yourself space to grieve, to witness what was coming up, to notice, to process it. You just want to know that you were present when you made your choice, and you didn't do it out of haste or pushing or rushing, that you made the best choice you could in that time, because there is no right or wrong in many things in life. There's only what's right for you. Our emotions are not a burden. Our emotions are natural human survival skills that are asking us, inviting us to be aware. So be aware. Notice where it's coming from. Breathe, take time, whatever it is for you, to be present in that, and let that charge dissipate in everyday activities. And over time, you're actually probably going to notice how that traces back to something maybe a little bit bigger. And as you can go back and neutralize that original experience, heal, whatever you want to call it, you'll realize moving forward that you don't have that same trigger pattern, that same emotional response. You're more neutral, you're more professional, you're more compassionate with yourself. You're able to hold space for others who are going through it.
And your stress is lower.
Well,
thank you so much, Amy, for coming on today.
Thanks for letting me share.
Stress is something that will always come our way. However, how we handle life's challenges could make a huge difference in our health and happiness. We only get one life and one heart. Let's make sure to treat it right. For more information on today's show, visit WhitneyReynolds.com.
Go beyond the interview with our 52-week guide of inspiration. The book goes deeper with the stories you see right here on The Whitney Reynolds Show. To order your copy for $12.95 plus shipping and handling, go to WhitneyReynolds.com/store. The Whitney Reynolds Show is supported by the Illinois chapter of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, whose mission is to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide. Children's Learning Place, excellence in early childhood education since 1998. And the Autobarn Mazda of Evanston and Chicago. The Autobarn Mazda, where driving matters. Special thanks to Kevin Kelly with Jameson Sotheby's International Realty, Art of Modern Dentistry, Deluxe Cleaning Services, Josh Moulton Fine Art, Evolve Her, Chicago Andrea Creative, and Mazda.